expert tonight, since, sheriffs are elected in Texas. And over on the end is Yantis Green, political analyst and editor-in-chief of San Angelo Live. Yep. And we're here to talk about the results for tonight for the March 5th Republican primary and Democrat primary. They've been voting all day. So, Sheriff Hanna, you've been around. What have you seen? Large crowds?
Yeah, we went around and checked several of the stations, and also talked to Vanna Hudson about the early voting. I think the numbers were really good. She was really happy with them, and so the crowds have been good. The numbers have been. Everybody's been pretty happy with them. I think they had over 800 over at the TxDOT on Knickerbocker, and we left one of the churches on Johnson Street a few minutes ago, and they were in the 400s. So everybody's pleased, but it does look like the lines are moving, and so I think they close at 7. But if you're in line, you get to vote.
You get to vote. So probably then that's probably what's holding up Yantis. That's probably what holding up our election results tonight.
That's right. What's probably happening is Vanna down at the elections office is waiting to release those absentee and early voting results to the media and online until the last person gets to vote, and that's the Democratic way, and that's the way Vanna generally handles things. And
the Democrat way is what you said.
The Democratic way.
Oh, Democratic way.
The Republican Democratic way. She's done that in the past, and I think that's probably why we don't have any results yet.
Yeah, we can't have Michigan influence in what's going on in Tom Green County.
Right.
And the other thing is, someone could get their phone out and go figure out what the election results are and say, so and so's going to win anyway. I'm just going to go home.
It is an electronic world, and she is cognizant of that, and I think she's doing the right thing, and it just makes our shows longer.
Yeah, so we're going to be coming back from time to time as we have information to give you. Right now, we have hardly any information because the polls are closing. I wouldn't say they're all closed yet. We had a line out the door at TxDOT's, what I understood. So I don't know how long it took
just a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
it was taking about 45 or 50 minutes to get through TxDOT. So
okay,
and that's probably our longest line. I would venture to guess.
So we're looking at, they probably just now processed the last voter at TxDOT, or they're close to it. So we ought to get election results in probably 10 or 20 minutes.
Well, and previously the process had been for poll workers to close the polls and secure the ballots and take all the equipment apart and then take it all back down to the elections office. And that was a time-consuming process. And then Vanna listened to the public and listened to the parties, and what they wanted was, let's get the results down to the office first, and then go back and get the rest of the equipment. So that change has been made.
Yeah, that happened like in 2020. Remember, when August Pfluger was fighting that large field of candidates from all over the place, from Midland. Yeah. And we didn't know if he won until like 11:45 that night, because Tom Green County was the last county to report. And so Jeff Betty, who at that time was the Tom Green County Republican Party chair, held a big brouhaha at County Commissioner's Court and yelled at everyone and said, "This is crazy. If Glasscock County is beating us, why?"
Yeah.
Joe, do you even know how to spell brouhaha?
Not really. Okay. Not really. I think it's BROO, right?
Well, let me ask you this. I'm just going to give you some perspective. So, what is a good voting number for Tom Green County? Is it 14,000?
I think so. For primary, I think you're right around 14,000. That's without a. But the interesting thing here, I have early voting across the state stats, which is interesting. It comes from Derek Ryan, who is a political consultant out of Austin, and it kind of shows for early voting only. How we're doing in Tom Green County.
So how are we doing?
So right now, our turnout in early voting as of yesterday, so this is up till Thursday early voting. Well, when are we early voting in? Thursday?
Friday.
Yeah, Friday. So this is up to Friday. In-person early voting, I don't know if he has the mail-in on that, but it's 11.3% turnout. And if you kind of compare it to all the counties around it, I mean, Washington County is really big. So if you have a big-time contested race where people are really interested in, then that kicks it up. And then, of course, here's the interesting things about it. We had 11.3% of Republicans turn out. 83.6% of those voters always voted Republican, never voted Democrat for the past 4 Republican primaries or primary elections. Okay, so that goes back 8 years, right? And then of that, the mixed R's, which means they're a Republican voter this time, but maybe they're a Democrat in one of the four, is 2.8%. And your mixed D's are 1.5%. So they have majority D's, but they've still voted in Republican primaries. They've sinned. And then 8.5% of that turnout is voted in only the general election.
So what I'm interested to know is, are you saying that of eligible voters, that's we only get 9%?
Well, that's these 8.5% of the voters in this primary have voted only in general elections prior. They've never voted in a primary election.
I see.
Does that make sense? But what looks good for Darby on this is, the big concern for the Darby campaign is Drew Darby. He's running for state house. His big concern was in a presidential election year. When you have that at the top of the ticket, then you get a lot of new voters. And when you get a lot of new voters, they don't know their incumbent, they don't love their incumbent, that kind of thing. And they might vote for the challenger, especially if they're getting massive amounts of text messages and direct mail saying, with a Pinocchio nose on Darby, saying he's a bad guy, right? Well, only in this election, only 1.7% of the early voters, so 1.7% of the early voters have voted or have no history of voting. So it's a very low number. So that's good for Darby. He's got a lot of experienced voters.
But it also means some of our parents need to be sitting down with their kids at the dining room table
and tell them to vote
that week. Well, that week, and talking about the candidates, who they are, what they stand for, and make it a family affair. So we start getting the younger generation.
Right, but this doesn't indicate that the younger generation's not voting. It's saying that only 1.7%. Well, I guess you're saying we don't have any new voters.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you're getting at. No new voters. What was the numbers of the turnouts? You made the last article. Do you remember that off the top of your head?
Well, it was like 7,800. I'm sorry, 7,800 early voting.
So that's about 12,000. We'll get 12,000 total, 13,000.
You can almost double that, so 14,000, 15,000 out of the 70,000 registered voters.
Yeah, so still.
It's still not great. It's not a good turnout from my perspective.
Right.
I think part of that is, for some reason, we're afraid in the process anymore. We want to have forums, and nothing wrong with the forum, but you've got to have debate. You've got to have active interchange between the two candidates. Right. It's not enough just to have an idea. It's enough to be able to defend your idea and to articulate it in the arena of whether it's a commissioner's court or a legislative branch and affect leadership change. Just coming up with an idea is only a small portion.
Yeah, to come out and say I am pro gun rights.
Yes.
Is not enough. You got to be able to say, well, are you still pro gun rights if a Uvalde tragedy happens in your district?
And it seems to me that we don't have the debate anymore. Now, in the presidential stage, we have it.
Well, we don't even have it there. Trump and Biden didn't vote. They canceled their last debate.
Right.
And you're not going to have a Trump versus Biden debate this go around, I don't think. Do you think we'll have a Trump?
I don't think that's going to happen in the fall. I think that's, that if there's any news to be made so far, I think you can pretty well say that Trump is going to win the day on the Republican side. For the Republican nominee.
So you've been looking at the East Coast returns.
Yeah,
what are you seeing?
They're majorly in favor of Trump, and of course Biden doesn't have any competition. So I think today or tomorrow we'll see that they are in effect the nominees, even though they won't be officially nominated until their party conventions this summer.
Well, going back to the idea you had, Sheriff Hanna, about no one wants to have a debate, it's people are afraid to speak in public. I don't get it. When I ran for county judge, my unsuccessful run, we had Angelo Live go to every debate and televise it. Film it, put it on YouTube. Even we wired it. We either live streamed it if we could, but if the internet was bad, we couldn't wire live streams. But we came back and we uploaded it, so everyone had access to those forums. Which the only one that was real debate was the one we put on. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at what we tried to do this election cycle for the 2024, we invited Stormy Bradley, who is challenging Drew Darby. We invited her to a debate. And we never got to talk to Stormy. We only talked to our handlers out of Austin. And she said, well, we don't think Joe Hyde is a good moderator, and I wouldn't step down as moderator. And so she, if she can't face Joe Hyde in the SUG room at the library, how is she going to debate anything on the House floor?
Well, and those environments are filled with alpha personalities, and so you've got to be able to interact and survive in that arena, in that field.
Right.
And if you can't, then what does that say about your ability?
Well, if you can't show what you can do now, what do you anticipate? Can she fight for something that we need in this county? For example, what if we need more? The city needs a grant from the water development fund at the state to build a new water plant. I mean, our water plant's 100 years old, 104 years old now. Those kinds of issues that you need a state rep to be able to argue for. Like a couple of years ago, our docket got backed up, and so you can go in and spend $500,000 a year and new budget thing to put another district judge in here, or we can maybe get a magistrate. So Darby went and got a magistrate for us. Of course, the county complained because it didn't come with any money to pay for it.
And another curious thing is it seems to me there's a lack of interest or lack of participation. There's not a lot of candidates. So many offices are unopposed.
Right.
It's almost disappointing when you go to vote and you're like, oh, there's only one person to vote for, And
you think August Pfluger, our congressman, needs to have some competition?
Well, I'm broadly speaking. I just think that any, whether it's business or athletics or life, you're better with competition.
Our entire judiciary here has no competition. All the judges, all the district judges are running unopposed.
That's true.
The DA's running unopposed.
Both DAs, the county attorneys unopposed.
Yeah,
I'm unopposed.
You're unopposed.
Right.
I mean, I think we could have. Yantis, we were trying to get someone to run against Hanna, weren't we?
I appreciate that.
Everybody was just so afraid, though. They
didn't want to debate you, and they didn't want to go to the sub room and have to debate you.
Well, we are. We have finishing up our first term, and we're excited about the second one. That we're in our last year, and we've had some really good successes at the sheriff's office, and so we do.
All right,
we are thankful for to the folks in Montgomery County for putting us in office. And we've got really good leadership and had some really good success as far as criminal interdiction and in human resources, our attraction and retention of employees.
So when you first took over, you did have a huge retention problem with the sheriff's office. I mean,
yes, we had about a
or do you exaggerate that for the budget meetings?
No, it was about 14% turnover, annual turnover.
So where are you at now?
Well, I haven't calculated. I'm going to say about 4% right
really?
now. Yes. In fact, we're having one person leave, but they're getting out of law enforcement, and that's the first one we've had in probably maybe a year.
Okay.
And so for an agency with 251 folks, 151 being on the correction side, about 100. That's really pretty good for an agency our size, because anytime you have a large, I've just learned, a lot of people, you're going to have some
turnover.
Some moving points.
Well, one of the things that I learned this year with the city of San Angelo is going through the meet and confer process where the police officers were arguing they needed more pay.
Yes.
And what happened in the municipal police officer world, it looks like to me from covering these stories, is that a lot of these cities like Abilene or Wichita Falls or whatever, in their budget sessions, they decided the FY 2024 budgets, they jacked up the entry level and some of the mid-level salaries really high and caught us flat-footed. So we had such lower salaries, and the meet and confer kind of fizzled out, and all of a sudden we were about to lose. I've heard 25 police officers at the San Angelo Police Department. I know you don't like to talk about other agencies, but what I learned there, and the reason I'm saying this, is that a law enforcement officer is a trained individual. It's very expensive to train a law enforcement officer. When you lose a law enforcement officer, and they're not making a lot of new ones anymore because of all of the stuff that happened with BLM and the riots of 2020. I think a lot of people got turned off from law enforcement career. So these guys that are trained police officers, trained sheriff's deputies, they're hot commodities right now.
Well, it needs to trend towards a profession, and so the pay is going to have to accommodate that. And you're right. The scrutiny is much higher. You're in a glass house, literally.
Yeah.
Who would want you or I mean to have a camera strapped to them 24/7 when you walk out for everything you do, and for everything
that some muckraking journalist could like
and
FOIA.
So, and we have to do our due diligence. So if we have a use of force in the sheriff's office, well, we review it. If you have a fleet accident, well, we review it. If you have a pursuit, well, we review it.
Right.
And we're not doing it to be critical. We're doing it to get better. But at the same time, it does create a, we don't need it to create a sense of hesitancy in our deputies as they respond. We want them responding to the situation. It's kind of like being a basketball official.
Right.
Every call is scrutinized in slow motion and looked at from 4 different angles. Well, it's real life, and it's life and death. And it's, you have a perception and reaction. It takes about a second and a half. So you don't always make the right call, but you're exactly right. Applications and folks looking to get law enforcement is down. But hopefully the pendulum is going to swing back soon, or maybe it's already started. And I think with the sheriff's office.
I think you're actually, the pendulum won't swing back, and this is the problem we have with Angelo State University, in that in 2008, nobody was having any kids because it was a financial crisis. You couldn't afford them. So there is a dip in the number of like 18-year-olds now, right? They're 17, 18-year-old year group, and that dip is going to cruise through that recruiting, that young recruiting age for law enforcement, for the military, and that's why you're hearing Democrat congressmen up in Washington saying we need to sign up the illegal aliens to join our military. So I mean those are some things that are happening, and that are bigger, that are going to impact us, I think, and that's also going to drive up your salaries, I think.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah.
Well, and you just graduated a new class of jailers, corrections officers.
Yes, we did, and we'll be. I think we're putting on another one in the next few weeks, and so we've had a little bit of turnover in the jail, and then but we've had Major Mull's doing a fantastic job out there, and the admin staff is doing fantastic. Ron Sanders, he used to be an investigator for us and retired, and he came back. He's helping put together the school. We have individuals from other counties. They come and train at Tom Green County within our walls, and we don't poach those individuals at all. But it does speak well that we're training our own folks, and they're doing such a good job that it's attracting other counties.
Well, building a professional paramilitary organization is hard, and you have to build institutional fortitude. You have to have traditions. What are some of the Tom Green County sheriff only traditions you'll have? I mean, do you have to make them eat ice cream when they graduate or something?
No, the things we've changed is historically when you're in the jail or in the detention center, if you wanted to come work at the sheriff's office, it was on your dime. Well, we initially instituted a scholarship for one jailer. Mm-hmm. Well, now that's grown to now we do still just have a scholarship ahead of time, but we'll also reimburse you when you go to school.
Right.
And if you graduate over a period of a year, you'll get reimbursed for your expenses. So that's a move in the right direction.
So that's a tradition now.
Yes, that's
scholarship tradition.
Well,
I want more fun traditions.
More fun traditions.
I mean, when they do their first patrol, do you prank them?
I guess we're going to have to work on some.
You're going to have to get some good bull stuff going on.
Maybe I always see on movies and stuff, the sheriff walks in and opens up the back cabinet and gets a bottle of whiskey down, and they have some sour mash.
Yeah,
we don't even do that. So, I guess we're going to have to broaden our horizons.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to this election, things have changed since your first election. Mm-hmm. Campaigning has changed so much, and part of that has been social media. And this morning, one of the first things that happened, we were sitting in the newsroom, and one of the guys there said, "Oh, I just got logged out of Facebook." Well, then we all got logged out of Facebook. The whole world got logged out of Facebook on Election Day. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but I am a news hound, and I can put two and two together, and that concerned me on a very serious level. But social media plays a big role in campaigning now.
So you mean concerned? You thought that they were trying to put their thumb on the election? When
we are fighting since the 2020 election, has been a pivotal part in American history. January 6th changed the world because it's perceived by half the country as a threat or an insurrection, because the other half thought that the election was stolen.
Mm-hmm. And they still think that way.
Now we have shenanigans on Election Day on social media where the bulk of voters are, And you can't tell me that didn't cause some voters to have to say, "Whoa, wait a minute."
It's kind of like when they stopped counting the ballots at 11:59,
and the outcome changed, and you wonder why. But people are passionate about democracy, and the democracy's hard. And it should be. I mean, this shouldn't be a cakewalk, or everybody would do it and do it correctly, but they don't. And this is hard, and this election will change the way we do things because it's a rematch. This is a title match that's a rematch of that point in time, and campaigning has evolved.
Yeah, it's a rematch, and those same 50% that are saying the election was stolen and the 50% saying it wasn't are on the same sides again.
And the difference is there's a lot more money now, and it's a lot nastier, and that is trickling down into state races.
Yeah, our Texas House races are a mess because of all the money. I mean, we probably had $10 million thrown into them.
At least 6 the last time I heard.
I was just looking at campaign finance reports. In this race, it's close to $1 million from Stormy.
Right.
You count up all, maybe from more from all the PAC and all that stuff.
And from the governor. And, we were looking at the results, and everybody's concerned about how close this race is going to be. One of the demographics that those figures are not going to show is educators.
Yeah.
Teachers are typically anti-voucher.
Hey, Sheriff Hanna, isn't your wife a teacher or an educator?
Well, she is. She's an educator. She's a counselor.
She is. She's a counselor at a public school.
Yes.
And I'm old enough to be able to tell you that I was a school board trustee the last time there was a dust-up between the legislature and school administrators and
public schools.
And public schools.
So you were down there in Christoval,
I was a school board trustee in Christoval. And
so you also failed to rebuild the elementary school.
No, we built a middle school. My name's on it.
Your name's on it,
and,
but the elementary school needs to be rebuilt now, and they're saying that's going to raise your taxes.
Well, after I left, they failed to pass a bond. So
yeah, okay, so
it's after my time. But
typical to pass it.
Typical politician. He's passing the buck.
Blame the guy that follows you, or the guy you follow.
But what happened was the next time the legislature met, and they're going to meet in January. The governor and the speaker and the lieutenant governor decided that they were going to teach school boards a lesson, and especially the Texas Association of School Boards and the Texas State Teachers Association, and they took a lot of power away from school boards. A lot of budgeting power, a lot of calendar power, a lot of salary options,
right.
And they really put the squeeze on those folks. And vouchers are a similar issue.
Right. Well, was the House back then successful in putting the squeeze on, or did they relinquish some of the control back to the school boards?
They were very successful, and it took 3 sessions for them for the TASB and TASA to work those things back out,
right.
To reconcile their differences.
One of the problems we have with this one is obviously the voucher thing, and Governor Greg Abbott declared war.
That's what this is about.
And there's 21 House reps in this past legislative session that voted against or stopped his voucher initiative. Of the 21, 5 have resigned, said we don't want to run. Like Murr down there in Junction, he said, I ain't running, I'm done with it.
Right.
And so there's 16 left that have candidates that were endorsed against, the incumbents were endorsed against by Abbott. Stormy Daniels is one of those candidates that
Stormy Bradley.
Stormy Bradley was one of those candidates that was endorsed by Abbott. Up in Abilene, you have Liz Case, who they accuse of being a carpetbagger from Dallas-Fort Worth. She has her homestead in Dallas-Fort Worth, but I guess she has an Airbnb in
Jones
Tuscola.
Property in Taylor County.
Right, and so she's going to run against Stan Lambert, and she's gotten a lot of money in backing. And then if you move further to the east toward like Parker County, Palo Pinto County, Stephenville, Mineral Wells, you have Glenn Rogers and Olcott, I can't remember his first name, but Rogers is the incumbent that's been endorsed against. Like Abbott went in there and endorsed Olcott. So, and then even further east Texas, I mean, you have Travis Clardy from Nacogdoches. And Abbott came in and endorsed against him. He's a tough conservative, and they're sending out the same flyers they're sending here with a big old pointy nose, Pinocchio nose on Travis Clardy, saying he's a liberal, and a lion Republican, rhino liberal. There's the same stuff all over these House districts, and there's 16 of them, and they spent a fortune.
And that is, the angst is, in my mind, has been a product of the Tea Party movement that started in 2008 when Obama was elected, and it's the Republican Party of Texas has allowed the Tea Party to take over. The Tea Party's taken over the party. It's moved way far to the right back than it was in 2008, and what you're seeing is Governor Abbott go that way as well. And I've never seen a governor use his power this way to oust House members,
and some of them are pretty firm
financially.
Yes.
And
pulling all these billionaires from out of state to pay for it.
So my question is, what happens after? What happens in January? What if he's not successful? What does the legislature look like? And how does his agenda move forward in the next legislative session? Because there are going to be some wounds from this election moving forward in Austin that are going to be hard to get over.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, I've heard that he needs to get 10. He already has 4, so he needs 6 more heads, 6 more scalps. So which scalps is he going to get? We have them in our results that are going to be coming up later on in the next live stream.
Yeah.
But Sheriff Hanna, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, and
thanks for listening to us talk about Texas House politics.
Well, politics, you don't see much, but you sure hear a lot, right? It's like the old saying in a small town.
Yeah, exactly.
So, thanks for having me, and we're glad to continue service in Tom Green County Sheriff's Office. And
Sheriff Nick Hanna, he was the man in the hot seat. Lots of good things happened at the Sheriff's Office, and he ran unopposed. Apparently, Greg Abbott is happy with him. And for Yantis Green over there all the way on my right, I'm Joe Hyde, and this has been the Angelo Live Election Returns. We're going to do another live stream as soon as we get some results in. So it might be in 3 minutes, it might be in 30 minutes, we don't know, but we'll see you in a little bit.
Sounds good.
Until then, I'm Joe Hyde with Angelo Live, and we'll see you in about 30 minutes minimum.